Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us right here on Africa Update on Trust TV. I'm your host, Chiamaka Mwafo. Now, this week on the show, we'll be telling you and giving you updates on what's happening on our great black continent. And we'll start off with South Africa, where the ANC, reeling from its worst electoral performance in 30 years, the South Africa's ruling party on Thursday said it will seek to stitch together a government of national unity to administer the nation. Also, the African National Congress failed to win an outright majority in South Africa's recent election, and this means that they will need time to form a coalition to govern. What will it look like, and how will it affect the country's policies internally and globally? In this report put together, the combined report from Africa News and VOA, we'll be seeing what the ANC plans to do and what people in South Africa have to say about it.
Can a unity government like that of 1994 help South Africa now? ANC officials say it is the first option on the table after the party lost its majority. President Cyril Ramaphosa and senior party officials were in a critical meeting Thursday in Johannesburg to decide how to go about forming a government.
We have already held constructive discussions with a number of parties: the Economic Freedom Fighters, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the Democratic Alliance, the National Freedom Party, the Patriotic Alliance. We have also engaged our alliance partners to brief them on the process and will continue to seek their invaluable views and guidance.
Ramaphosa, who seeks a second and final term, acknowledged the challenges ahead.
The ANC notes that we do have ideological and political differences with several parties in our political landscape. However, we will not preclude the possibility of working with any party so long as it is in the public interest and it is in keeping with the principles that they have articulated.
Any deal must be in place by mid-June. In addition to staying true to its core principles, the ANC leadership must reassure grassroots party members. Some protested outside the venue of the committee's meeting.
South Africans say they are excited and eager to see what a coalition government is going to look like, days after elections show no party won an outright majority.
Oh, I'm excited because the ANC is finally going to be in a position where they have to reconsider how they've been approaching running the country and governing the country.
It's a very challenging for the ruling party. They have to think now which coalition they should do, because with DA it's something else, with EFF it's something else, with the latest MK it's also something else.
Depending on the coalitions, like if it is the DA and the ANC coalition together, the DA can actually get in and actually do some good where the ANC has failed.
The African National Congress secured 40% of the vote, followed by the Democratic Alliance with about 22%. A coalition between the two could reconcile the country, says Tendai Mbanje, election analyst.
The DA-ANC coalition promotes non-racialism. The DA-ANC coalition promotes unity in the country among two races. It could also strike balance between the competing differences in terms of addressing issues of poverty.
Other coalitions could be with the newly formed party led by former President Jacob Zuma, Umkhonto Wesizwe or MK, which won about 15%, or the Economic Freedom Party, EFF, which won about 10% of the final vote tally. Edgar Githua is a professor at Strathmore University in Kenya. He spoke to us via Skype.
And unfortunately, Zuma has already pronounced himself on this and said he will only have a coalition with the ANC on condition that Cyril Ramaphosa is not going to be the president. Yeah. It looks like ANC, EFF, and they need someone else. They need one of the other tiny ones to help them just pretty much get to the 51% to be able to form the government comfortably.
The ANC says its leader will not resign following election results, but is open to working with everyone to form a government that will serve South Africa's people.
At this stage in time, Cyril Ramaphosa is the best foot forward for the ANC, simply because of his reputation within and globally.
While internally, governance could improve with the coalition government, South Africa's positions on global issues such as the Russia-Ukraine and Israel-Hamas wars may come into question, both Mbanje and Githua say.
How they look at the Palestinian Hamas issue, those are some of the things that will now have to be renegotiated afresh within the coalition government, because all political parties have their manifestos, have how they want to project themselves.
South Africa has accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza in a case they brought to the International Court of Justice. Israel argues that its ground offensive, which the Gaza Health Ministry says has killed about 36,000 Palestinians, is in response to Hamas militants' attack on Israel last year that killed 1,200 people, according to Israeli tallies.
Now, the United Nations General Assembly on Thursday elected Somalia to the 15-member UN Security Council for a 2-year term starting in 2025. The tiny Horn of Africa nation was among the 5 countries that received the winning votes alongside Denmark, Greece, Pakistan and Panama. Africa News has more.
For the second time in its history, Somalia has been elected to serve on the UN Security Council. The East African nation was chosen together with Denmark, Greece, Pakistan and Panama in a secret ballot in the General Assembly on Thursday. 79 years after the UN was established, there are growing calls for the Security Council to embrace reform. Somalia's top diplomat said his country would support multilateralism.
In our engagement, we will strive to strengthen the cooperation between the Security Council and the regional organization, including the African Union. Somalia recognizes the central role of effective multilateralism and cooperation in addressing the complex issues of our world today.
The freshly elected council members will start their terms on January 1st, replacing those whose 2-year terms end on December 31st, namely Mozambique, Japan, Ecuador, Malta and Switzerland.
Now, according to a report, conflict has forced a record number of people around the world to become internally displaced, forced to flee their homes but still living in their home countries, often in refugee camps. As Henry Ridgewell reports, the figure has increased dramatically in the past 5 years. This is from the VOA.
In recent months, thousands of people have arrived at the Bulengo camp for internally displaced people near Goma in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. They have fled fighting between the Congolese army and M23 rebel groups. Faida Bauma arrived with her 4 children.
Look at the conditions in which we live. When it rains here, we suffer. Look at where we sleep. When it rains, we have to fold our mattresses. We're going to die here. People are even raped.
Conflict and violence have driven the number of internally displaced people around the world to a new record, according to a new report from the Geneva-based Internal Displacement Monitoring Centre. Almost half live in sub-Saharan Africa. Nearly 76 million people globally were forced to flee their homes in 2023 and are living elsewhere in their own countries, many in camps or makeshift accommodation. That's an increase of almost 50% over the past 5 years.
Half of this figure comes from just 5 countries, including Sudan, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Colombia, Yemen, and Syria. And these countries are usually not visible in the media headlines.
Sudan has the largest internally displaced population in the world at more than 9 million people. Most were forced to flee their homes after the latest civil conflict erupted in April 2023.
Many of them have been forced to move multiple times. So we saw families moving away from Khartoum, going to the DRC regions, moving all across the country. And of course, we are very concerned about their needs and their vulnerabilities, because with each new displacement, their resilience reduces.
Some 4 out of every 5 Palestinians have been forced to flee their homes in the Gaza Strip because of the conflict between Israel and Hamas, according to the report's authors. With borders closed, most have nowhere safe to go.
Recent UN estimates point out to the fact that it will take around 80 years to rebuild everything which had been destroyed in the Gaza Strip. And this shows that it might be that most of the people who are currently living in Gaza and who have been displaced won't see their houses rebuilt during their lifetime.
Close to 8 million internally displaced people were forced to flee because of natural disasters. The February 2023 earthquake that struck Turkey and Syria triggered 4.7 million displacements. Cyclone Freddy, which hit southern Africa in February and March last year, forced 1.4 million people to become displaced.
We move back to the south of Africa, where Zimbabwe, facing long hours of power cuts due to its dilapidated infrastructure and the impact of recurring droughts on hydropower. To help, the United Nations Development Programme is installing solar panels on government-owned health facilities. Columbus Mavunga reports from Bulawayo.
Health centers in 15 countries have installed solar power through the United Nations Development Programme's Solar for Health project. That includes more than 1,000 health centers in Zimbabwe, the largest program in the world, says UNDP resident representative in Zimbabwe, Aloyadele Odusola.
If you put all the renewable energy capacity that we have generated in the country, is 13.03 megawatts, which account for 35% of all independent power production. The one that is not done by government is huge as an individual entity.
Zimbabwe has for years been facing energy shortages. Long hours of power cuts affect even hospitals. Dr. Nasisi Janga is the Chief Medical Officer at Impilo Central Hospital, one of the health institutions which have benefited from the Solar for Health project.
All the news that used to make the headlines in the newspapers that Impilo has no electricity for 2 days, 3 days, that should be a thing of the past. It's a real game changer.
Tandazani Chingila is happy his father's prostate cancer operation went through at Impilo Central Hospital without a power shortage.
Impilo is off-grid now, which means Impilo will totally be independent because of this solar, so which is marvelous to us.
Authorities hope the switch to solar energy is seamless at all health facilities in Zimbabwe installed with solar power, and excess is released to the national grid.
Now moving over to East Africa, in Kenya, where journalists living in exile are finding support to continue working in their professions, thanks to a fellowship provided by media groups. From Nairobi, Victoria Amunga has more.
Isra Dawood's job in media came to an abrupt end in 2023 as a war erupted between rival factions in Sudan. The journalist fled her home in Khartoum.
We had to move from our house to another region because we stayed like for 10 days, but after that we started to hearing some news about women get kidnapped and get raped, and that was for us, it is frightening.
Arriving in Kenya last May, Dawood had to rebuild her life. Thanks to a media support program, she had a helping hand. An initiative between the German-based Media Incorporation and Transition, or MICT, and African partners helped enroll her in a hub for exiled media. She received a MICT fellowship that includes financial and legal help and safe working spaces for journalists affected by conflict in Sudan and East Africa. She also received training and connections to media outlets that can publish her work.
I wrote 3 articles, of course, under the supervision of the project. So I always, when I was sending the materials, sometimes they have small maybe comments that you should focus on this, you should write this. I think this a good learning process.
So far, the hub has helped at least 80 journalists globally, 15 of them in Kenya. A panel reviews and selects applicants.
The fellowship usually runs for about 3 to 4 months, and the holistic support structure consists of 7 concrete modules which are offered on an individual basis and include livelihood support, security considerations, mental and physical health support, integration and legalization offers.
Partners in the program, like the International Press Association of East Africa, or IPA, help by setting up press credentials and finding publications willing to pay for articles. They also provide working spaces.
This is basically a huge chunk of what we are trying to even continue more, and especially expanding to have this co-working space where people can come and even just brainstorm creative ways of doing things, new ways.
Conflict and repression are forcing hundreds of journalists to exile each year, say UNESCO.
You also have journalists who face political repression, legal harassment, censorship, risk of retaliation from criminal groups, or simply lack of job opportunities and weakening media landscape.
And in Sudan, UNESCO estimates over 8.5 million people have been displaced in the past year, including journalists like Dawood, who hope to return home soon. Until then, media hubs like this one offer support and some normalcy to those in exile.
And we have so much more coming up for you after this break. Don't forget to still stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's the Africa Update on Trust TV, and we'll be giving you updates of what's happening on the African continent. Now we're going back to South Africa, where, it seems like a lot of China has moved over there. Now, South Africa has seen several waves of immigration from China, with early generations of migrants fleeing extreme poverty at home and new arrivals seeking business opportunities. Kate Bartlett has a story about Chinese South Africans who have established businesses, Johannesburg old and new Chinatowns.
From duck to dim sum, the kitchen inside Shonde restaurant in Johannesburg gives Chinese immigrants a little taste of home. Hong Kong native and restaurant owner Kun Chan immigrated to South Africa almost 40 years ago.
It was easy to make money in South Africa back then.
Chan used to have a restaurant in the old original Chinatown. He closed that business because people got scared going to the old Chinatown due to crime. Chinese migrants have been living in Johannesburg before the old Chinatown was even built. The first Chinese arrived in the 17th century as convicts or slaves from what is now Indonesia with the Dutch East India Company. Then, during the early 1800s, Chinese indentured labourers were brought to work on the railways. The original Chinatown on Commissioner Street was established in the 1880s when free Chinese from the impoverished south of China came to the frontier mining town as part of the gold rush. Then, in 1948, South Africa established the apartheid system. Chinese living in the country were classified as coloured. Like black South Africans at the time, they were restricted to living in certain areas, but much has changed. Apartheid ended and a democratic government was formed in 1994. How ethnic Chinese immigrants from different backgrounds see each other also changed, says Arthur Ma.
Before, say 20 years ago, you could feel it because we don't even really speak to each other, the new and the old one. We just stick to our own selves, the local Chinese and the overseas Chinese. Now, we help one another.
Ma is a first-generation Chinese South African. His father fled poverty in southern China and arrived by boat in 1942. As life improved here, he sent money back home.
Then we actually helped build a hospital, give a little bit donation in our own village.
Now, Johannesburg's ethnic Chinese community includes people from Taiwan and Hong Kong. And as China opens up and prospers, there are new immigrants from mainland China.
Anything we need help, we always ask the new one because they're the ones with the money, you see, because China's going good. But we pave the road for them in this country.
Now there is a new, safer Chinatown where more Chinese gather in the suburb of Cyrildene. South African-born doctor Alice Yulin Fan's parents moved from Taiwan in the 1980s.
My dad and my aunt opened up factories in Bloemfontein, and then afterwards they opened up restaurants. So quite.
Yulin Fan and Chan's children and grandchildren can now live where they choose to live in the city. Many have professional jobs, but still come to the new Chinatown where Chan has relocated his restaurant. Eating, celebrating festivals, events that bring ethnic Chinese from different backgrounds together to keep traditions alive.
Apparently, it's also just only in South Africa. In Nairobi, it seems that Chinatown is a thing too, as Chinatowns are recognizable all over the world, either by their big red gates or streets lined with Chinese restaurants and stores. In Nairobi, Kenya, there are several Chinatowns of different sizes scattered around the city. VOA Nairobi Bureau Chief Mariama Diallo took a stroll on one of them and has the story.
From caramel sunflower seeds to Chinese instant noodles, the Feng Cheng supermarket has a wide variety of products.
This supermarket is not only for Chinese, for any people.
This market is in one of the mini Chinatowns in Nairobi. Located in the Kilimani neighborhood, it's about 5 kilometers west of the city's central business district. Owner and former doctor Liu Fengchen opened this market 6 years ago. Originally from China, he came to Kenya 3 decades ago. He married a Kenyan and they have 2 children. Chan says he became an entrepreneur because he saw a business opportunity here.
I check from 30 years ago up to now, is the Chinese, there comes some more than before.
The modern-day wave of migration from China to Kenya took off during the administration of late President Mwai Kibaki, says Nairobi University's Kenneth Ambongi.
Kibaki sort of formulated a foreign policy that was anchored around what we call positive engagement in diplomacy, which was, if we have danced to the tune of the West all this long, and we have not been able to move as fast as we wanted to move development-wise, why can't we try the East?
Like many African countries, Kenya has green-lighted massive Chinese-built infrastructure, including highways and railroads. They are part of Chinese leader Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative, a multi-billion-dollar vision aimed to promote trade and investment by connecting China to the world through infrastructure projects. Along with more Chinese workers connected to these projects are businesses that cater to them.
We provide soup, a pot of soup, beef soup to be precise. You cook by yourself, so we have a variety of things. There's different kinds of meats.
General Manager Stephen Obado says he's been working at the Hot Pot Train restaurant in Chinatown since it opened in January.
Majority of our customers are Asians, but we also have local customers. So Chinese people and Thailand people, those are the majority of the people we get here.
Bonnie Howe, originally from Shanghai, recently moved to Kenya from Uganda for work 6 months ago. She's been a regular visitor here.
By eating the hot pot, it can make me missing my homeland. Maybe I'm going to for shopping. Some Chinese will use some special things, like the vegetable is different from local.
Fresh faces mean more business for Liu Fengchen. Between the Chinese and local customers, plus the years he's been living here, he's learned to embrace Kenyan culture and even picked up a little Swahili.
And
finally, we say learning has to happen in a station building. Learning can take place anywhere, and that's what Kitobos is doing in DR Congo.
If you don't go to libraries, they will come to you. This is a concept behind Kitabus, a mobile library designed to promote reading to a wide audience. The name Kitabus is derived from Kitabu, which means book in Swahili, and bus is a means of transport. This book mobile is an initiative of the French Institute of Bukavu in eastern DRC, which aims to promote basic education in the region through books that align with the Congolese education curriculum. It offers a varied collection of novels and other books to promote access to reading. At this moment, I'm reading a book by the name L'Atelier de Roxane. I feel comfortable and happy to be here and see the books. It will help me write, read well, consult, and love books. The association behind this concept is called Enable. Their objective is to eliminate poverty in all its forms, beginning with basic education, the primary channel for preparing a generation capable of addressing the huge developmental challenges in the near future. For Patrick Zeze Irenge, stimulating a love of reading in children and young people symbolizes growth beyond learning. The creative youth intervention aims to enhance the potential of young people. We know very well that through reading, young people learn a lot, especially to be autonomous in many ways. We supported this project because we are convinced that young people need to learn a lot and should have this culture of reading, sharing, and exchanging to enable their development. The director of this primary education institution sees this initiative as a great way to engage students during downtime and above all contribute to strengthening the Congolese educational system, which faces challenges in implementing its policies of free basic education. This means that after this activity, our children will be able to use manuals, and this project is here to foster a love of reading in our children at the Le Progrès School Complex. This mobile library initiative in Bukavu is the first of its kind in the Democratic Republic of Congo, laying the groundwork for the implementation of suitable means to promote access to reading.
There you go. Don't let anything limit you from finding and learning more. Knowledge indeed is power, and you can get it anywhere. And that's the size of our package today on Africa Update this week. And don't forget, we'll be here next week to give you more wonderful content. Do not forget to follow us on all our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I am Chiamaka Mwafo. Bye for now.